I could crush a bloody grape. I couldn't. I can't understand that. I'm a bloody live. I've been streaming for 10 years and I'm setting it up and it bloody sends me live. I'm sure YouTube banters me. Anyway, hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge. This is your latest Manchester United news. We're here. We're back. Hello. It's been a great day, to be fair. It's been an eventful day. We're close to Sesko. Will Lammens be next? We've got lots of money to spend. We'll talk about that. Harry Maguire could be getting a new contract. Bloody Burnley, says Thomas. And it's an 8 o'clock show, which means we're driven by you. And not only that, loads of people say, can we have a behind the scenes of your studio? Go on my Instagram, at Goldbridge Mark. Click the link in the live chat. You'll get a tour into the room. And I'll tell you what, you'd be quite surprised on what it looks like. Yeah, take a look at that. Anyway, I don't know why it went live, but we are live. There we go. So how are we all feeling? Have you joined the Keep Calm Club and Trust Man United Club? I know that is a word that is not very often used in relation to United, but I think on Benjamin Sesko, we can safely say that we have navigated the choppier waters and it is now calm. It should be plain sailing from here. There are always going to be the doubters. There's always going to be people going, I'll be happy when he holds up the shirt, and that's absolutely fine. But from pillar to post, from Ornstein to Romano, everything is indicating that Manchester United will get this deal done. And I think that's a huge, huge positive. I mean, look, if you want to talk tonight about how you're not too sure about Sesko, that's absolutely fine. But I want to really talk about what's next. I want to talk about why you... I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on. I want to talk about what's next, and I want to talk about what you think, because that's what the 8 o'clock show is all about. But look, in regards to Sesko, let's hit the news first of all, just a bit of topical stuff. Yeah, look, all the big news came in at lunchtime, and subsequent to that, I think we're still in the case where any second now it will be Newcastle out the race, Leipzig accept our bid, Sesko only wants Man United. I'm literally writing Romano's tweet for him. Newcastle have left the race. Sesko only wanted United, always wanted United, and now United and Leipzig are working on a deal to get that done. All parties happy to work together. That's the sort of thing I'm expecting. Could be another late night drop. But in general, look, I'll pass you my opinion on here. A lot of people talk about Sesko and his 13 goals in the Bundesliga, but Leipzig had a terrible season last year. They were god-awful in the Champions League, and they have got some very good players. They just had a very, very bad season, and he was 21 in that team. You know, he's not Lewandowski at 29, prime, ready to go, put the pressure on my shoulders. So we are getting what we're getting. This is certainly not a striker that is... Why are you up there as well? Oh, I understand. I don't actually understand why you're doing that. Microphone's playing silly games as well. That's probably why I was a bit quiet. It's bending down there. But look, Alex says, I wish I had Mark's confidence on this deal. I don't care if you're nervous. I don't care whether you're excited. I really don't. I can only convey my honest opinion. And I've played the game. You know, I look at David Ornstein, you know, and when he's saying what he was saying, I'm confident that Manchester United are going to get that player through the door. And I've played the game, and I think, I don't understand why people don't think like that. You know, it's obvious to me. And I think, as I said so many times, I'm boring myself. When David Ornstein said we were in for Sesko, he doesn't get up in the morning and go, oh no, I feel like winding up United fans. It's because he knows something. And when United are allowing that to go out, and I don't know how that works, by the way. I'd love to know the inner workings of how that works. How is it last week that David Ornstein gets that Man United are going in for Sesko? And why do Man United tell him that? There'll be multiple reasons. But my interpretation of it, after years of experience, is that if United are happy for that to go out, then it means you've got a very big indication from the player that he wants you. Because trust me, David Ornstein will have asked senior people at Man United before he put that out, because he won't want to upset relationships in the future. So that's where my confidence sort of was born out of, really. And as I said, Newcastle's public noise, and that's all it is, about bidding this, that and the other, was just noise and propaganda, in my opinion. Man United just quietly went around their business, and then when the bid goes in today, the mic drop is that Man United only bid when the player wants to come. So, look, unless that all comes crashing down, which would be a huge shock, because I've just evidenced why, I don't think it will, then it's a case of when and not if, which obviously I'm very excited about. So I feel like I've moved a load of stuff in this room, and I don't know why. So yeah, look, Newcastle's not my concern. Man United's my concern. And what I want to see next is speed. And I'm not talking about the USA influencer who can run fast. I'm talking about speed in the transfer market. I would like to see, and look, it's great. It's been really exciting, and it's great that Newcastle have been in this story, because it's really sped up the whole process. As many of us have said, if Newcastle weren't in this race, we'd been negotiating with Leipzig offering 40 million up until the last week of the window. So the fact that Newcastle have pushed us to go high from the start means that realistically, we should be getting here we goes and medicals and everything else very, very quickly. Now, as per Sam C in Leipzig today, Sesko is trained individually as well, which is despite having a good relationship with the club, which he does, he's still training individually. So I think that shows that there is a requirement to get this done quickly, and everything indicates it will be done quickly, because if Sesko is training individually, he ain't going to want to be doing that for the next 3 weeks. So my hope is that Tuesday night, and it's Tuesday as well as Tuesday, Tuesday night, tomorrow we get the decision more publicly. Thursday you're flying into Manchester, Friday you're doing your medical at the New Carrington, and Saturday on the pitch he's holding up the shirt. Now that sounds incredibly fast. It does. It sounds incredibly fast. But I think that what I will say is that's the sort of thing that could happen, and we're not used to it, but that's the sort of thing that could happen because of how advanced and how quick this deal has worked because of Newcastle. So I think that's sort of like what I expect to happen, and it's by no means impossible that we could have flying in on Thursday, medical on Friday, official announcement on Saturday, on the pitch, Fiorentina. We like to do that. And I think traditionally, correct me if I'm wrong, we've done that 2 out of the last 3 years where we've had official announcements on the pitch as well. So yeah, I think that would be really hopeful. Mark, if we get Donnarumma, surely only centre midfielder required. Yeah, I'm going to go through some of your comments in a moment. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping to happen with Sesko. And a lot of people are saying you're having a laugh. That won't happen. But I genuinely think it can. I genuinely do think it can happen that quickly. I don't necessarily think that we're looking at him starting against Arsenal. I think that would be quite difficult. But yeah, I mean, it's moving really quickly, and that's really, really positive. What's next? Well, that's where I'm going. Well, we can only do one deal at a time. We still haven't mastered the art of working on more than one deal at a time. What I'm hearing about Lammens is, the Royal Antwerp goalkeeper, is that he's waiting on us, and we do want him. And once Sesko's out the way, we will move for a goalkeeper. So that's a real positive. We've still got the barrier of Binder and Onana to a certain extent to deal with, but the expectation is that Binder will move, Lammens will come in, Onana will stay, and the competition will commence. But one deal at a time, people. One deal at a time. So once the Sesko deal is finalised, if the Sesko deal is finalised, and I think it will be, then we will move on to the goalkeeper, which is about as good as it's going to get. Now, look, some people say Donnarumma. I just want to give a big shout out to Swedish Rumble, who I've followed for a long time. I think he's one of the best, if not the best, account on X for the financial analysis stuff. He actually messaged me today and said, and I want to get this figure absolutely correct, basically said that Manchester United, it's a very rough estimate, but we could probably spend around 250 million before getting into problems with FFP after this season with 0 sales. It's a cash flow issue, which ultimately is down to the owners. So look, I don't profess to delve into that, but anybody who follows Swedish Rumble on X, or formerly known as Twitter, I'm sure many people who will know who I'm talking about. Really good financial analysis, especially around Manchester United. He said it a few times, and they're basically saying that we can spend £250 million this summer without sales. I don't know how that works. I really don't know how that works. Cash flows and credit lines, etc., etc. But the problem behind that is the cash flow. Like, we can spend £250 million, but where that money comes from, ultimately you need the owners to be sanctioning that, and that might not be the case. But look, we're going to hit 200 million of spend if Sesko deal goes through. So there is still enough there for it to work through. Yeah, 100%. Some people saying they're not happy with Lammens. Look, some people aren't happy with Sesko. That's life. I mean, look, obviously, I'm going to sit here and say I would love Manchester United to go and bring a goalkeeper in that goes straight into the team with experience and moves Onana on. But I don't necessarily think that that is a important thing. I think it's I think we're going to end up with what we end up with. So yeah, interesting. Somebody said, did you see Keith's reply? I hadn't. I've just looked at it now. I mean, basically he says, I've always got on with Forest fan. I mean, God. I mean, if that's all you've got, Keith, I mean, bloody hell, I pity you. I mean, the joke's 10 years old and it was made up by a rival fan channel. And that's your comeback to your club, being turned down more times than a thermostat in a heat wave. That's your comeback, calling me a Forest fan. Well, I won. Easy work. I mean, you know what? You can tell the IQ of a football fan very quickly on when that's their comeback. I mean, I have no comeback to it because it's just a load of shit. It's rubbish. It's like saying my dad's bigger than your dad, or calling you, it's poor. It's really poor. I've only just seen it, so that's my reaction to it. That's terrible. No wonder people don't want to sign for Newcastle if that's the quality of your comebacks. Absolutely terrible. Mark, getting a new keeper is really important for the simple fact that it would boost the quality of our entire defence simply because he's not Onana, says Danny. Look, Sesko's not even, here we go yet. Sesko's not even official yet. Sesko's not even holding the shirt up yet. I believe he will be, and I've never changed my stance on that like many of you, but we should already be working on what's next, because it will be a big improvement to our team to have another striker. I still hope that we keep Rasmus. I want competition for places up front. Maybe that will happen, maybe it won't. But you work back through the team, the midfield is still a huge issue, and so is the goalkeeper. And no matter how good Sesko is, no matter how good Cunha is, and no matter how good Mbeumo is, they're not going to make that midfield weak, and they're not going to make our goalkeeper not weak. So, you play teams like Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Spurs, Villa, and maybe you can give them problems going forward, but they're going to get joy on the attack against our goalkeeper and against our midfield. So we mustn't start going, it's a worldie of a transfer window because we've got Cunha, Mbeumo and maybe Sesko. We're still massively wide open in the midfield, and we've got a goalkeeper that thinks he's playing volleyball. So those are big problems. And do we want to be playing? I mean, it would be a very, very, very exciting season if we've got to score three or four goals to win games, and we get a load of 3-2s, 3-3s, 4-3s, 4-alls. It'd be very, very exciting. But it would also become a little bit annoying when we're scoring the goals and then we're conceding the goals. So goalkeeper is very, very, very important. And I think that, my dream is Donnarumma. I just don't believe the rumour. I really don't. I think we're being played. I would take Emi Martinez, even though some of you wouldn't do it. But what I'm hearing is Lammens. And, some people were very uncertain about a certain goalkeeper that will finally get the send-off he deserves on Saturday, which is David De Gea. He was a young, inexperienced goalkeeper with a big reputation. And haven't seen loads about Lammens, but if he's got, good wrist action and can actually deflect a shot out of play instead of back into the danger area, that's a big improvement already. Let's get into some of your comments. Thank you, everybody. It is your show on an 8 o'clock show. John United said, as long as the manager's backed, he can be judged. If we get a striker, a goalkeeper and midfielder, we've got a real shot at a decent season. He has to agree on the name, says John United. I feel like we'll struggle if we don't get a centre midfielder, says 1 Inch Wonder. Look, I think one thing that has become abundantly clear, and we'd all agree, is that the midfield is a big concern. It has to be a concern for Amorim as well. Goalkeeper or midfielder, if United can only buy one more after Sesko, says SNS. I think that's a problem either way, though, isn't it? I mean, do you want to go for a midfielder or a goalkeeper after Sesko? And do you want to be sat there in 7th going, it's because we didn't get a goalkeeper, or in 7th because we didn't get a midfielder? I mean, ultimately, you need to get both. We're not pissing about. Like, we've got a very slim outside chance of being able to go for 5th, but we've got to get everything right. Alan Shearer chose Newcastle over United, and look at his career as well as trophy cabinet. Sesko should treat that as a lesson and choose United as victor. In fairness to Alan Shearer, he was, he still is, a Geordie and a Newcastle legend, and it was £15 million. I'm glad he made that decision because, to be honest with you, when you look at when Shearer signed for Newcastle, was it 96? And you look at the success Man United had. I don't think this has ever been said by anybody, but I just want to get my dates right on this. It might have been said by somebody, but I've always held this belief. I think Shearer has always said he made the right choice, and that's up to him. And he is the top scorer in Premier League history, isn't he? But he signed for... When did he sign for Newcastle? 96. In the summer of 96, he signed for Newcastle. That was at a point where our class of 92 was still quite young. Cantona was still there. And we built a team to win the treble. I don't think we would have won the treble if Alan Shearer had signed for Man United. I think when you look at Alan Shearer, would he have been the right sort of player for Manchester United? We built a team in '99. Shearer was a ruthless, selfish goal scorer. It'd have been very interesting, but I certainly don't look back on Man United missing out on Shearer and have any concerns about it. Did you see Ben Jacobs' post stating that Sesko has now agreed financial terms with both Man United and Newcastle, says Ruiz? Yeah, I mean, I think we've worked through that. I sort of had that dropped on my shoulders when I was live at lunchtime. I think what that is, and to be fair, a couple of journalists did reach out to me about it. I think what that is that Newcastle have spoken to Sesko's people and agreed the financial package, and so have we. But it's more out of courtesy than he wants to go there. Like, it's more about lining it up if he needs to, because the Man United deal can't happen. His priority is Manchester United. That's what everybody's saying. So it's sort of like, the best way of explaining it is, if Man United pull out for any reason, then he will go to Newcastle. It's not like I want Man United, and if that doesn't happen, I'm staying at Leipzig. He will go to Newcastle if, for whatever reason, the Man United bid collapses or whatever. So, yeah, there is an agreement. They're different financial packages, though. I mean, I don't know who's paying the most wages. Maybe that will come out in the wash. Is Man United going to have to pay in full or at least significant portion because of Newcastle, says Wolf in Blue? I don't know. I don't know. James Wood says, Sesko to score the winner against Arsenal, an upset action man. Would love to hear how you'd compare last season's front three to this front three. We haven't played a competitive game, James, so it's all hypothetical. But when you look at the front three last year of, let's say, Rasmus, Garnacho and Ahmad or Rashford or whatever, then look, Sesko, we're going to have to wait and see. Cunha and Mbeumo, I think, give us more assists, which I think makes us better. Any chance you'll be doing a Webby and O'Neill watch-along this season, says Unsocial? I didn't even know they did watch-alongs, but I very much doubt it because the United stand do watch-alongs and we're the biggest and the best. Pressure must be on Bruno, Cunha and Mbeumo, not Sesko, says Abhijit. I feel you are keener on Sesko than you were earlier this summer. What has changed for you, or have you always been keen? And I'm talking rubbish, says Ewan. No. You're actually talking sense. I think that going into the summer transfer window, I would have said Gyökeres, Osimhen would be the players that would fill me with the most confidence. Beyond those two, I think you do start delving into the worlds of Ollie Watkins and Sesko, and it's the next stage down. And you have to sort of convince yourself that they are good signings. There are elements of risk to it. I completely agree. They wouldn't be my dream signings, but they're not bad signings. I mean, I certainly would put Watkins and Sesko ahead of people like Nicholas Jackson and Liam Delap. So I'd say it's sort of tier 2 signings. Tier 1 would have been for me Osimhen or Gyökeres. Tier 2 is where you get your Seskos and your Watkins, and maybe your Ekatikes, etc. So look, it's probably not where I wanted it to be at the start, but it's certainly not where Man United wanted it to be at the start as well. And ultimately, I can't complain too much about it, because you have to be adaptable in a transfer window when you finished 15th and lost the Europa League final and you're not in Europe. You have to be adaptable. And some would say that Benjamin Sesko, as a Man United signing, look, especially if we went back 6 weeks when Arsenal were sat there weighing up whether to go for Sesko or Gyökeres, if I'd come onto the show and said Man United will get the player that Arsenal don't want, I think we'd have all gone, we'll take that. Because you are looking at two strikers that were, Arsenal at times didn't know which one they were going to go for. So I would take that, whether it was the priority or not. Only things that Bradley Hevo, thank you very much for joining the members club, by the way, and getting your badge in. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much for your support. Sean Turner says the only thing that slows this deal down is the structure of the payment. I fancy him being ready for Arsenal. This is going to be a sneaky good window, says Sean. We can rescue this transfer window. I think for many of it's been a 4 or 5. I think if you get the goalkeeper in and Onana's not in goal, if you get a midfielder in and you get Sesko in and you get those players out that need to go, I think we can push for maybe an 8, 7.5. So, I mean, look, we've still got a lot to do, but that's what Sean's sort of saying. It could still be a sneaky transfer window. So let's see. United are now open to offers for Rasmus. Do you think Sesko be given the number 9 jersey, or will he keep his number 30, says Ghost92. I think it's a shame if Rasmus goes. I mean, look, this is what it's all about, opinions. I think it's a shame if Rasmus goes, because my big concern is I don't think Obi's ready. I'd rather him go on loan. I don't see Xerxes as a striker. And with the best will in the world, Sesko in his first season in the Premier League might only score 13 goals. I mean, that's still an improvement on what our striker did last year, but I would like a bit of competition for him. I would like to bring a striker in. And if you remove Rasmus, Sesko's basically the striker every minute he's fit. If you keep Rasmus, he's got a bit of competition that, someone to keep him on his toes a little bit. And I think that it's a strange one to me, because we have done that with the centre-backs, with the number 10s, we're stacked. And then if Rasmus goes, it's Sesko every minute of every game again, apart from a 17-year-old striker and a Xerxes who is just not a striker in the same way that Sesko is. I don't want Lammens, I want Costa, says JB. I don't think we're getting Costa, although you never know. If we get Donnarumma, surely only a centre midfielder required, says James. I wouldn't be expecting Donnarumma. I really wouldn't. This is very quickly turning into the coolest transfer in history, like Pacino walking into a bar and taking your girl, says Nick P. Mike JW says, is it ironic or just strange that we have Arsenal's first choice for striker and they have our second choice, says Mike JW. Look, ideally, we'd have Gyökeres and they'd have Sesko, and that could have been the world. The fact that it's the different way round. I remember somebody saying a couple of weeks ago, it reminds me of the summer where Chelsea wanted Lukaku and we wanted Morata, and Morata ended up at Chelsea and Lukaku ended up at Man United. Now, I think these two strikers are better than those two strikers. Some might disagree, but in a different world, it could have been Gyökeres at Man United and Sesko at Arsenal. And we'll find out in a few months' time, because we might be having a conversation that Sesko would have been better at Arsenal and Gyökeres would have been better at Man United. Hopefully, for both of us. It's not the case. Who was our main striker target before Sesko? Because otherwise we would not give the number 30 shirt to Leon 2 weeks ago, says Bronny. I think it's obvious that Delap was plan A, Gyökeres was plan B, Ekitike was plan C, Watkins was probably plan D, and Sesko is now sort of plan D as well. We did approach Watkins about 3 weeks ago, and we did approach him again about a week ago. So he's certainly been on the agenda, yeah. We've got Sesko, only United can mess this up now, says Zane. Good to see you well, says Brody, but what's different from 2 years ago when we signed Rasmus, and is Rasmus leaving now? I think the difference between Rasmus and Sesko, and I think Rasmus would acknowledge this as well, and actually you raise a good point, because I want to just read you this, because I think it's very, very important. Just on the next club odds, by the way, Newcastle are drifting out and Man United are massively in. So even though people are saying it's still a 50-50, that's just on that. But no, what I wanted to just, it's a good question, like, because people say, what's the difference between spending £60 million on Rasmus 2 years ago and £60 million on Sesko now? Well, the difference in essence is that when you look at Sesko, who is 22 and only just 22. I always think Sesko's like 24, 25 because he seems to have been around for a very long time. But Sesko's 22. He signed for Leipzig when he was 20. And he'd played 55 goals for Salzburg, scoring 21 games in the 4 years previous to that. He's then gone to Leipzig and scored 27 goals in 64 games. So he's not quite a one every two striker, but he's played 41 games for Slovenia and he's scored 16 goals as well. He's obviously been playing Champions League football, I think, for quite a few of those five. I don't remember, but in the last 5 years, I think he's played Champions League football 3 or 4 times. Rasmus' breakthrough season was the season before he signed for us. So Sesko has got a lot more experience certainly in the Champions League. And he wouldn't be classed as a learner driver. He'd be classed as more experienced. NBK, thank you very much. Welcome to the Members Club. After the morning show, I put £100 Sesko to United, says Dawid. Well done. Man United with the raw Sesk appeal. Get the champers, says Thomas. We're the richest broke team in the world, says Stephen G. Lots to spend since when? Didn't Jump say otherwise, Jim? What have I missed while working, says Mike. Mark, can you go out and walk the dog? Deal gets done when you're not at home, says Light Schofield. Sesko saying he's open to both us, and Newcastle feels like he's in cahoots with Leipzig to get the max for them and himself. Signs of no 100% allegiance scare me, says Hitton. And do you think if Man United get Sesko, there is still enough time and funds available for a goalkeeper? Yes, Marv, plenty of time. It's a high priority for Manchester United and Ruben Amorim and Jason Wilcox. A goalkeeper is high priority. You can argue about why it's been left so late in the window, but I'd be stunned if we don't buy a goalkeeper. If we go into this season with Binder and Onana, you know, that will not be what Manchester United want. Still don't see us finishing in the top 6. Shout out to from US Navy, glory Man United, says Javan. Love that. Shout out to all the US Navy or anyone who watches from the armed forces in the UK and around the world. Thank you very much for your support. And if you're driving lorries, James with Jack, thank you very much. Welcome to the Members Club. How did we go from broke to having dollars for players, says Indeed were. Scott Bramwell, welcome to the Members Club. You know what? There's a few people saying that. And I go back to what Swedish Rumble said, that we could spend £250 million if we've got the cash line to do it from the owners. I don't know why people turn into accountants around what we can and can't spend. It's been well established before that Man United can suddenly find £150 million from nowhere. Remember Ten Hag's first summer? We've got no money left. We lose the first 2 games, 130 million on Anthony and Casemiro. Money can appear. And I don't know why people get so hung up on it, because Chelsea have been doing this for bloody years, finding money here, there and everywhere. It's, you know, it does happen. So I wouldn't be too concerned around that. There is money to be spent. Whether they want to spend any more, we'll have to wait and see. But there's definitely money to be spent. So yeah, let's see how that goes. If and when we get Sesko, when do we go for next, goalkeeper or midfielder? Also, I hope we continue to do pre-season with other Premier League sides in the future. Okay, Alonso, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. I want to talk about Harry Maguire very quickly, but I just want to, I'll go through some more of your super chats in a moment. Thank you very much to Savage. There's a few of those, just don't even time them out, block them. Don't you think a goalkeeper should have been signed at the start of the window, pre-season, etc.? It says 23 official. Well, we've spoken about that, pal. And in fairness, you know, I agree with you. I want to just read you about this. This came in from Mike Keegan about Harry Maguire. Actually, can I run a poll on this? Yes, you can. You're in control. Would you keep Maguire beyond this season? Before you vote, in fact, I won't even put the poll out. So we're going to run a poll for the live chat. Would you keep Maguire beyond this season? Mike Keegan in the Daily Mail has put it out today that there's been a few approaches for Harry Maguire from in the Premier League and abroad. And the general consensus is that, you know, he's not allowed to go this summer. And Man United are looking at maybe keeping him beyond his final year. He's on £190,000 at the moment. He has had a bit of a renaissance and he is an important player in the dressing room. Does he fit the system? He's 32. He's on 190k a week. Do you give him a new contract? Start the poll. I'm too Sesko for this shirt, says Chris. I mean, can you imagine the Stretford end going, I'm too Sesko for my shirt, too Sesko for my shirt, too Sesko, it hurts. I think that's the way to empty Old Trafford. If they want to empty Old Trafford, bloody hell. I'd definitely say don't buy him if that's going to be the song. I said it before, Mark. Watch United pull a camel out of the hat and spend 150 million on deadline day, says Frank. Just saw Sesko in Salford Keys, says 1 Inch Wonder. Don't you think a goalkeeper... Done that one from 23 official. Any update on Rios, the centre midfielder? Yeah, he signed for Benfica, Warwick, didn't he? Who would win in an arm wrestle, Sesko or Højlund, says Damien. What happened to that Brazilian midfielder called Andre? He was another one. I heard Terry talking about Enmicha and Andre today, and I thought, you know what? Not necessarily a bad shout. Oh, he went to Wolves. He went to Wolves. Yeah. So I don't know why he was being mentioned. He was at Fluminense and he signed for Wolves last August. Bloody hell. How many? He played 33 games for Wolves. Fucking hell. Brain blank there. Was it that long ago that we got linked to him? Or am I thinking somebody else? I thought there was a midfielder from Brazil that we were linked to more recently than 12 months ago. Okay. Who would win in an arm wrestle, Sesko or Rasmus, says Damien? I don't think it really matters. Mount is showing signs of being a great asset for this season. How does he get game time and what position, says Anton? I think in relation to Mason Mount, it was TR who messaged me about this, so big shout out. I think the intention of Mason Mount coming into the club was to be sort of the heir to Bruno Fernandes' throne. Obviously, we gave him the number 7 shirt. That's not played out. 250 grand a week, £55 million transfer, number 7 on the back. I think he was brought in by Ten Hag to be somebody to challenge and succeed Bruno. But the problem is that hasn't happened. We've seen sporadic moments of quality because he is a quality player. But how he fits into these plans, I think Ruben Amorim likes him, but the transfer activity of this summer, if I was Mason Mount, I'd look at it for what it is. It's not validation of my future at the football club. It's actually a very big message that we don't trust your fitness. And there is a hidden story behind Mason Mount that has been sort of swept under the carpet again. There was talk at the end of last season that he needed an operation that would keep him out for 6 months. Now that has been completely and utterly, forgotten about now. But he does have an injury, I think it's pelvic, that has been very problematic for him for his time at Manchester United. I think the signings of Cunha and Burma and the keeping of Bruno and Xerxes still being here, and Ahmad, I mean, we've got a lot of number 10s. Mason Mount doesn't have a pathway into the team. To get a place in the team, he's going to have to push out a Cunha, a Bruno, and Mbeumo, and he's going to have to stay fit. I think that's going to be very difficult for him to push those players out. So I think Mason Mount at the moment, despite wearing the number 7, is effectively looking at cameos in the latter half of games where he could be a very useful player. Rasmus being competition for Sesko would be like Phil Jones being competition for De Ligt, says Yellow Sun. I don't actually agree with you there, but it's better than not having any competition. When do we expect a Here We Go or an Ornstein Bomber, says James Woods? It could happen now. I mean, I don't... I mean, maybe a Here We Go is a bit premature. I don't know how this plays out, actually, because if you take Newcastle out the equation, well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you could get a Here We Go now, which would feel really weird, because technically what we're waiting for is a Here We Go, isn't it? Because the bid's in. So if the bid was accepted, we could have a Here We Go very, very quickly, which doesn't feel right when you're in competition with Newcastle. But another theory I have is that Newcastle will be out of the race and Man United and Leipzig continue to negotiate because Sesko only wants Man United. That could be what happens. I mean, I hope it's a Here We Go, really. I think Amrin wants Bruno to play in the pivot but move forward then in possession. Yoro or Martinez moves to the pivot to form a 2-2-5-1. I think you're absolutely spot on, Martin. Yulmlin rumours coming out last few days is 23 official. I haven't seen them, but I would love them to come out. Put the Butcher in midfield. Play there a lot for Ajax. He didn't play there that much, the Ground and Golden Retriever, to be honest. He played there, but not that much. Give Kone a chance also. What would be a 10 out of 10 window for you, says the Moose? It can't happen, mate. A 10 out of the 10 window can't happen because we're already too late on sales. We're already too late on purchases. So a 10 out of 10 window would be all of your key signings in for pre-season, all of your shit players out, and on top of that, some really surprise good signings and surprise good sales. So a 10 out of 10 I wouldn't expect the club to do. If it can do an 8 from this point, I'd be very pleased. But a 10 out of 10, you look at what Liverpool did in June, that's what you're sort of talking about, getting deals in that you've been planning and they're ready to go very, very quickly. Look, the goalkeeper and the striker should be here. We're playing a game against Arsenal a week on Sunday. Those sort of things make it the perfect window because it's not just about buying players, it's when you buy them and when you sell them. Mark, which for 40 million, Donnarumma or goalkeeper and CDM? Well, I'm not going to get a very good goalkeeper and CDM for 40 million. We need a goalkeeper and a CDM, Sean. Do you think ter Stegen is an option? I've never heard anything about us going in for ter Stegen, and I think he's got his own thing going on with Barcelona at the moment. Sent again membership, it's me, thank you very much. And Yanni says, remember Newcastle gave Sesko a deadline, tick-tock. Yeah, is it not tomorrow as well? If we get a goalkeeper, should we go get a centre midfielder to make our team more stable? Do you think we can keep the midfield how it is, says Scott Bramwell. The big problem with Manchester United's midfield, and we've spoken about it so much, is that if you go and buy a midfielder, you effectively end up with Bruno, Mainu, Collier, Ugarte, Casemiro and another midfielder. So you've got 300 grand a week on Bruno. You've got 300 grand a week on Casemiro. That's 600 grand a week. Let's say Ugarte's on 150 grand a week. That's 750 grand a week. You've got Mainu wants a new contract on 150 grand a week. That's 900 grand a week. Collier's not going to be on that much. Then you bring another midfielder in that's probably going to want another 100, 150. You're spending nearly 1.1 million on midfield wages. And you can only pick 2. So that's the problem United have got. We're not in Europe as well. So you're going to end up with 6 midfielders on 1.1 million or 1.2 million or £1 million a week in wages. And you can't pick them all. And on top of that, let's say your new midfielder and Bruno become your midfield 2. You're going to want to play them every Premier League game because every game's a cup final. When does Mainu, Ugarte, Casemiro get game time? We need people out to bring people in. I know they don't do watch-alongs, but you and Tony and Webby would be a class show. Invite him to do a watch-along with you. Tony's great, says on social. Oh, I see what you mean. Thank you. I know what you mean now. I don't mean Sesko not committing to United already. I think one reason Mbeumo deal took so long was United knowing they'll get him, says Shahin. And Christian, thank you very much for your super chat, says, hi Mark, hope you're doing well. First game of the season against Arsenal, Sesko scores 2 and Gyökeres didn't let a man dream. Let's go Sesko. Christian, just on that, and remember, we are doing the most hypothetical guesswork ever because he's not actually signed for Man United. And imagine what would happen if the worst, you know, the biggest Hail Mary happened and he ended up signing for Newcastle, which makes no sense at this point, to be fair. We play Arsenal a week on Sunday. He's not had any pre-season with us at all. Even if we get a here we go tomorrow, an official announcement on Saturday, he won't play against Fiorentina and he'd have a week of training. So at best he'd be on the bench. I couldn't see him starting. So yeah, no matter what happens with Sesko, it's extremely unlikely that he has very much of an involvement in the game against Arsenal. And you know what as well? I know the really interesting thing is that your brain's popping all over the place as a Man United fan because there's so much happening. But think of it like this. If Sesko's not going to be in time to start against Arsenal and Obi's 17 and Xerxes injured, surely we need Rasmus for Arsenal. Or are we going to do Cunha up front? Which my head spins at that. I do not want to see Mbeumo or Cunha or fucking Bruno playing up front against Saliba and Gabriel in the opening game of the season as they can do a job. Because I tell you what, me and Ricky were on about this. Cunha against Everton may as well have been sat down on the sidelines, you know, with his coat on, because it was an absolute waste of time. So let's not forget, it might be in our interests, if we are going to sell Rasmus, to keep him for the Arsenal game. So at least we've got somebody who can start as a number 9, and then we could maybe bring Sesko on if it's done by then. But we've got to move really quick if you want Sesko involved for Arsenal in any way, shape or form, quicker than we normally do. So Mark, why do you exclude Obi when you talk about 2 strikers? I know he's young, but I don't think him and Rasmus are far apart, says Yellow Sun. Well, that's a fine point, and I'm sure there's people that agree with you on it, but we hardly saw Obi in pre-season. He didn't play that many minutes at all. So I think there's a world of difference between Rasmus and Obi, because Rasmus can play up front in the Premier League, and I think if you put Obi up front, you're chucking a 17-year-old in and saying crack on. And I protect young players, and I think so does Amorim, and I think he's got an amazing future, but I don't think he's ready to be thrown in to start games against Saliba and Gabriel at Old Trafford. Whereas I think Rasmus, you can throw him in and he'll do a job for you, and then you bring Sesko on, hopefully, for half an hour or something like that. Go to thumbnail, says Musty. I made that myself. Smash a like on the video for the thumbnail. I made that today. I was let free on it. What would you do with Obi? I mean, look, I think this is a season where he could explode and become a 17-year-old sensation. It's a season where he could continue to grow and be better than he is now in a year's time. Or it's a season where you could find him a really good loan. I'd love him to go to the Championship and play for someone like Birmingham City or Wrexham. I'd love that. Please go shopping to get the here we go, says Alberto. I've got good wrist action, says Huber. Ibrahim says, Looker says, breaking, Man United are interested in signing Mbeumo. If you know, you know. If Reece can go to Girona, United should offload to Nice, says Marius. Oh God, I can't even read that, Bruce. Is it just me who still hopes for Watkins and a goalkeeper, says Adnan? Well, I think you've got no chance of it happening, mate. We've got nearly 28,000 people watching, by the way. Please do subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and get involved. And Michael McLaughlin says, with all the talk about 5th or 6th choice striker, it's the 5th of August and it's actually the first bid we've placed for a striker, says Michael McLaughlin. Yeah, interesting. Frederick, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for tuning in. As long as the manager's backed, he can be judged. If we get a striker or goalkeeper... Sorry, let me read that again, John United. As long as the manager's backed, he can be judged. If we get a striker, a goalkeeper and a midfielder, we've got a real shot at a decent season. He has to agree on the names. Thank you very much for that. And One Inch Munder says, it feels like we'll struggle if we don't get a centre midfielder. Thank you very much for that as well. Right, let me come back to the poll. Would you keep Harry Maguire beyond this season? So it's come out today, this evening, from Mike Keegan, that Manchester United have had offers for Harry Maguire, who has 1 year left on his contract, a contract where he earns a reported £190,000 a week, but the feeling is that he might be offered a new contract. Would you give him a new contract at the end of this season? Yes, 49%, and no, 51%. My personal feeling is that there's two things here that I would want to know. One, I wouldn't be giving it now. I would want to see how he gets on this season. I think over the last 2 years, he's actually started to get injured at way more frequently than he used to. He used to be barely injured, which is obviously into his 30s. You'd look at that and go, is that just a body starting to break down? I mean, Harry Maguire is an absolute beast, you know, and you think about how big he is, and you think about how long he's played football. That can start to have an impact on your body in your 30s. So I'd be watching his injuries over the next 6 months, because we don't have to do anything until January, really. Also, I'd be saying to him, you're going to be 33 next. I'm not paying you 190k. You're going to have to halve that. So if we're 100k a week, and you prove your fitness, and you know, and also a third point as well. You've got De Ligt, Mazraoui, Yoro, Heaven, Martinez, Shaw. For Maguire, makes 7. For Maguire to be getting a new contract, he's got to be in around 3 or 4. If he's behind De Ligt, Mazraoui, Yoro, Martinez, then I'm probably not going to keep him on, because Heaven's going to come through, and I'd probably look for another centre-back next summer. So I think it's way too early to say yes or no, in my opinion. And that's not sitting on the fence, because I've justified the 3 reasons. Would you take McTominay back as a CDM, says Merch? No, because he's not a CDM. Newcastle's quick-fire bids made me think back to when Ben Jacobs said it can be seen as not respecting the player's space. Maybe a factor as well, says CJ. Mark, best lineup for Saturday to get proper prep for Arsenal, says Anton. Depends on fitness, doesn't it? I mean, Sesko's not going to play, so I would certainly play Rasmus or Obi up front. Mbemo and Cunha in behind. Ahmad as a right wing back. Dorgu as a left wing back. De Ligt probably won't be fit because he's got a knock, so maybe Maguire, Yoro, and Mazraoui might not be fit, so maybe Shaw. I mean, that worries me a little bit. Midfield 2 obviously terrifies me. I don't know. It's going to be Bruno and take your pick. And then goalkeeper terrifies me as well. So, yeah, there's still weaknesses. The thing is, I'm almost getting to the point now, especially with the Sesko story, he probably won't be there for Arsenal if we sign him. The goalkeeper certainly won't. So we're not playing Arsenal with the team that I think could get top 6 this season. We're not ready. We're not going to put a team out against Arsenal that's going to be the team that's our strongest anyway, you know? And that's without injuries. The midfielder we want's definitely not going to be there, whether we get them or not. The goalkeeper we want is definitely not going to be there, whether we get them or not. And even if we do sign Sesko, he's definitely not going to play 90 minutes. So you can't judge that 11 for Arsenal because it's not... Well, you can judge it, but it's definitely not going to be our best one. De Ligt, he hobbled out of the game at the weekend, Brody. I agree we need a goalkeeper, but surely we need to get a midfielder next. You only have to look at how City struggled last year without Rodri, says Ben. It's almost like midfield is where the game is won and lost. Mihail says there's no reason for no goalkeeper now, is there, says Mihail. I suspect, from what I'm hearing, that once and when and if, just to cover how everybody else is feeling about Sesko, once that's done, then we'll move on to the goalkeeper. I don't think we'll move on to a midfielder next. I might be wrong. They might change, but I don't think we will. Because I don't think we can go for a midfielder until we offload a midfielder, and I don't know that that's going to happen. Love United stand. I really hope we this signing, says Carrie. Thank you very much. Let us know in the chat, by the way, where you're watching from. Bit of nosiness there. I'd love Obi to go to Ipswich as 23 official. You know, that's good. That's good. I almost want to break out. I definitely want to give a Goldbridge high five. That's good. That's good. I mean, I remember on That's Football doing our weekly Premier League predictions with Robbie back in February, and we were talking about Mbeumo. Might have been March. We were talking about Mbeumo, and I said Mbeumo fits Newcastle like a glove, and Robbie did that. He went, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, really does." Well, he fits us like a glove because he snubbed Newcastle. But I wasn't setting that up to take the piss out of Newcastle. I genuinely think Mbeumo. I didn't think United were going for Mbeumo, and I knew he probably needed to leave Brentford. And I thought Newcastle play with a right winger. He's an upgrade on Murphy. I thought he'd be perfect for them. And like 23 official says there, Delap's left Ipswich, Obi in the Championship with Ipswich. I'd bloody love that. McKenna as well, United connections. I mean, I don't think it'll happen, but I think it would be good. Mika says, Sesko, Lammens, Douglas Luiz on loan, and another scouted cheap midfielder like Hackney, or remember the name, Edward Spurzian, makes this a 9 out of 10 window. No, I don't think we can do a 9 out of 10 window. Well, Mika can. It's his score, isn't it? I know we're close to completing the deal for Sesko, but what do you think will happen if the deal falls through, says David? We will get absolutely ridiculed, especially on this channel, for probably the next 3 weeks. We'll be bantered from pillar to post. Wilcox, Barada, Ineos, Glazers will get absolutely panned. There'll be a huge fallout because it'll be bloody embarrassing. But this is why it won't happen, in my opinion, because I think to their credit, United have actually handled this really well. Remember, we weren't looking at Sesko. We saw an opportunity with Sesko and we jumped back in. In fact, as far as the summer transfer window goes, we were more in for Sesko going into the summer last summer than we were this summer. So we've seen an opportunity. It's driven by Favel massively. And I think Newcastle a week ago probably thought they were going to get a free run at it. So I think we've behaved really, really well. Gabriel and Saliba are two of the most physical centre-backs in the league. Bruno False 9 would be like sending a lamb to the slaughter, says Emily Derry. Hope you're doing well, Emily. Did you know that Yulmlin has an Arsenal tattoo, says Casper? No, I didn't know that. Thoughts? What do your thoughts are? What do you think? Sorry, I'll reword this. JB says, what do you think Ruben Amorim's goals are to survive the season? I think he survives the season as long as he finishes in the top 8. I don't think people will enjoy finishing 8th, but I think he'd survive. I think his goals for the season will be Champions League football, which means top 5 or 5th, because I don't think we can do top 4. I mean, look, for me, I'll take 5th place. I'll take 5th place over winning the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. I'd rather finish 5th because football's changed. And the money you get from the Champions League, we need it. We need it. If we want to start competing at the top table, we need that Champions League. So, yeah, trophies are fine. Some people will disagree with me, but I'd rather finish 5th than win the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup because the Champions League, I think, is just so important now. We have to take the Cups very seriously. I don't know whether people are aware that we've got 4 games in August, not 3, because we finished in the bottom half of the Premier League, so we have to play an extra round in the Carabao Cup. I actually don't think that's a bad thing. I don't. I think in previous years you'd be embarrassed. I think this year it's another opportunity to play another competitive game in the first few weeks of the season and get yourself up to speed if we take it seriously. Now Amorim might decide to play the reserves. I personally think it's another opportunity to get out there and, maybe it's an opportunity to start a goalkeeper or a Sesko if you've got them in time. So, yeah, we could be playing the likes of Burton Albion. Yeah. I don't remember being this excited about a signing, says Oliver. Sam Wilson, welcome to the Members Club. Liverpool sold Morton for 15 million plus 20% sell on to Lyon. This is what happens when you're a decent team, though, Brody. Look at Man City, have been doing it for years. You win the league, you're an exciting team, people want to pay big money for your kids. I mean, I remember Liverpool have always been quite good at it. I remember Liverpool selling the guy was on he was on Baller League, wasn't he? What was it? What's that winger called? Was he called Obi as well? They had a winger. I think they sold him to Bournemouth for about 15, 20 million, and he barely touched the first team. Yeah. 23 official says, I do want to see Ipswich and Obi. Jordan Ibe, that was it. That was it. Do you think Sesko is a bit overrated, says Leon? No. No, I don't. I think he's probably slightly expensive. But I don't think he's overrated because I'm stunned he's 22. We've been linked to it. We've been linked with him for years. Chelsea have been linked with him for years. Arsenal have been after him for 18 months. Like, he's a high-profile player. Bayern Munich were looking at him. He's not just some guy who was playing for Leipzig that no one really knows about. Like, he has got a good reputation. The exciting thing about Sesko for me is, and I said this afternoon, whilst I know who he is and I've seen him play a fair few times, I wouldn't say I know that much about him. So a lot of it for me is reputational. So I'm looking forward to see him as and when he signs for United. Yeah, Savage is right. The fact that he's 22 will make him more attractive to Ineos because there's more value in him. Something Chelsea do as well. They love young players. That's why they want Garnacho. The value is that they've got bigger careers than people who are 27, 28. Ian Tracy says, I like Lammens. We need to be able to sign players who are Premier League level in lower reputational leagues before they move on and their value skyrockets. Ian, I was saying this to one of my builders the other day. He was asking who this Lammens is. And I said, we looked at Verbruggen when Ten Hag was here. And he went to Brighton. And I look at Verbruggen and that type of a goalkeeper. And that's exactly what we should be looking at. Because if you're not going to buy the Donnarumma or the Costa or the Martinez because they're too expensive, you need to be buying the next De Gea's. And that's what these Verbruggens and the Lammens are all about. The next lot. Because in 10 years' time, Real Madrid will have a goalkeeper that's not Courtois. Bayern Munich will have a goalkeeper that's not Neuer. Arsenal will have a goalkeeper that's not Raya. Liverpool will have a goalkeeper that's not Alisson. There's a next wave of goalkeepers, just like there's the next wave of Rodri's and there's the next wave of Van Dijk's and Salah's. They are out there. Like, that's what good scouting is. 10 years ago, a lot of the world's best players now weren't anything then. So there are players that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years are going to become the next wave of world-class players, and that's what good scouting's all about. So yeah, I understand people going, they want players ready for the now, but that's sort of what we're trying to do with Sesko. That's sort of what we're trying to do with the goalkeeper if we go for Lammens. So which midfield players would you sell? Casemiro is the one the club want to go, and Casemiro is the one I'd get out, and if Casemiro went, we'd buy a midfielder. It's not about transfer fee. It's about a place in the midfield and removal of the wage. United would love to get rid of Casemiro, but he wants to run his contract down, so it's difficult. Really, really difficult. Andre Gomez says, would you prefer a stopgap in the midfield with a cheap signing or go all out next season and try and sign Belieber? That's the $1 million question. Because if you wait till next summer and it goes really badly, it's such a key position. I think you've got to try and do something. And look, you could go stopgap now and sell Bruno next year for 80 million and still get Belieber. So I would try and do something now. I think in football, if you try and get by, it can go really, really wrong. What happens if Newcastle increase their bid? Sesko already has agreements with both clubs, says Siddharth. Look, Sesko wants Manchester United. We need to handle this and get it over the line, and I think we will. Thomas says, why do you think Amrim rates Mount? Because he's a number 10 who's mobile, who can score a goal and can create a goal. And that's it. But I don't think Amrim trusts his fitness. The number 7 shirts should be earned and not given, says PJ. I completely agree. Lucas says, Man United want to sack Richard Arnold, says Ibrahim. And if you get 100k watching for the first game, will you interview Amrim? It doesn't work like that now, man. Would you have stood by Mount if Ferdinand was sold, says Willie. I can't stand by Mount because his fitness doesn't allow me to. I've never had a problem with Mason Mount as a player. He just can't stay fit. So I wouldn't have stood by him if we'd sold Bruno. I'd have said spend the money on a really good midfielder. Anthony's playing the same game like he did at Ajax. Can we afford to let him stay in the reserves if he blocks a move? Very disappointed with Anthony, Christian. Really, really disappointed with Anthony. I'm sort of lost on the whole kissing the badge and... loving Manchester and everything like that. And again, he's another player that's had a lot of support from certain people and certain fans. I'm very disappointed that he is basically just sat there waiting to go on loan to a club that won't pay us any money for his own benefit and for Betis's benefit. And like you say, he has done it before with Ajax. So, this is why I'm never that enamoured by players that go on strike, because at some point they might do it to you. I think we should keep Rasmus in field this season. Will be his best. The competition will be great and players will feed him, says Anthony Smith. I just want more. I don't want Sesko to come in, struggle or get injured and us be really light up front. I miss De Gea's cinematic saves, says Yasso. I don't want to endure another season of bananas volleyball. And if that Sesko song happens, United fans will get bullied all season, says Joey. It won't happen. I think we need a midfielder more than a goalkeeper after that display against Everton, says Paul Fisher. Brandon says, drop Maguire's wage in half, give him a 2-year contract, no more. We need a solid squad to help develop the young centre-backs. And Schwer, welcome to the Members Club. Perk says, only if Maguire drops his wages to 100k. Todd Bowley has put 750 million in. Why can't we, says James. And I'm too Sesko for this shirt, says that's Chris Freeman. we did that one. We did that one. We have to finish above Newcastle, says Emin. Yeah, we're not becoming Newcastle's rivals. Like, there is a bit of a rivalry from Newcastle's side. Newcastle are not our rivals. So, look, I hope they go and get a striker because they've been trying bloody hard enough, haven't they? The Ten Hag era has traumatised us. We need to trust our scouting. Imagine the reaction today if we bought what Sir Alex scouted and were unproven, says David Rodriguez. Thank you very much for that. The next presser you guys attend, can you all ask Ruben if he had benched Bruno if he's having a bad game? I honestly don't think he would. That's from Big Savvy. And I worry about him being another learner driver. And if he is so good, then can Amrim get the best out of him like Gyökeres, says Tanai. And Emin says, I think Sesko will be a revelation second half of the season. Well, look, thanks everyone for watching. I've overrun a little bit there. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. Brilliant show again tonight. We're back at 10 a.m. unless we get a late hit with a Sesko. Here we go. Let's wait and see. There could be a late night drop. There certainly was last night, wasn't there? Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you all in a bit. And into the after show very, very quickly. I'm not going to be on long on the after show tonight, but I'll tell you a little bit of a story. I was sat there today, and I don't know what prompted it. And I think it was a little bit of music. And it's not even the autumn. It's obviously the summer. And it was a bit windy today. And I looked out the window. It was a bit windy, a bit grey. I heard a bit of music. It took me back to the 80s, which took me back to Saturday afternoons. My mum and dad separated when I was about 6. Boo-hoo. That's not where I'm going with this, don't worry. Not playing the victim card. But at weekends I'd go to my dad's, and on a Saturday afternoon we'd go swimming, which was in Rushcliffe near West Bridgeford, and his mum and dad lived in West Bridgeford, and we'd always go swimming at about 3 o'clock, and then we'd go round to his mum and dad's house, and it would always coincide, I think, tactically with Football Focus and Final Score. And I just remember being in their living room, having a biscuit and that, and watching Final Score. And I just went back there, and I was thinking about nostalgia and how people get so locked in on nostalgia. And obviously with football, it's really easy because you start thinking about Sir Alex and the class of '92 and Roy Keane and Cantona and everything like that. And it's funny how nostalgia, I think more and more nostalgia does sell, doesn't it? I was talking to somebody yesterday actually, and they were talking about like toys and Star Wars toys and He-Man and Subbuteo, and how kids of today, do they actually have that? And in 30 years, what will those toys be? And we all, certainly of a certain age, we look back on films being better, music being better, etc., etc. And we almost look back on them and go, oh, I wish I could have that time again. But, you know what? I was thinking, actually, let the past lie. Remember it. It's good. Because all the youth of today, in 30 years, are probably going to look back on now, nostalgically. And that's the lesson, isn't it? Live the now. Because when you live in the now and you're thinking about the past, in 10 years' time, you'll look back at 10 years now and go, oh, I wish it was then. You've just got to seize the day and enjoy it. That's the most important thing. And also, if I could go back to being, you know, that 11-year-old round my grandparents' house, watching Football Focus, it would be nice for a couple of minutes, but then I'd go, where's my phone? Not because I want to go and look at porn or anything, but to be honest with you, you wouldn't be able to do that. I'd also be thinking, like, put Sky Sports on. You can't do that. I'd also be thinking about, you know, all the things that I didn't have then that I do have now. You know, I won't be able to go on my online bank account and look at my millions because I'd just have £5 pocket money. And that's a joke. So, yeah, I think it did get me thinking. And ultimately, I suppose the big thing is that the grass isn't always greener and we don't have a time machine. But, you know, the past is good and nostalgia is great. But the past was once the present. So live the present and enjoy the present because it will soon be the past and you'll look back on it and go, that was a good time. So enjoy now. Unless your dog's died or something, in which case you're probably not having a good time at the moment. But I mean, in general, we do look back on the past, I think, a little bit and go, oh, it was so much better then. Well, make the present better. I always say, like, music was so much better in the 90s. It was brilliant. You couldn't move for brilliant music. Why don't we get it now? Well, maybe people should pick up a fucking guitar. You know, Oasis are back. Maybe that's going to inspire people. I'd love to see more bands. You know what? When I was like 16, 17 and when I, you know, first started drinking, me and my mate, we'd go into Nottingham and there were certain pubs where bands would be playing and we used to love it. That, you know, we'd just go and watch bands play. That's how Oasis started. Does that still happen now? Are there pubs with bands playing? Why not? Why aren't you doing that? Why isn't that scene coming back? These things can happen. Movies. Why does every bloody movie have to be, you know, well, some people call it woke. Whatever it is, they're not as good as they used to be. Why doesn't somebody look at a film from the 90s or the 80s and go, this is going to inspire me. I'm going to write this. They're going to make it. Where did all the sitcoms go? Situational comedy. Where did all that go? You know, why is that all gone? So, look, I think my point is, seize the day, obviously. But my point is, if you think things were better in the past, make them better in the present. You know? I don't, there are a lot of things that confuse me. Why that was better then. Why we don't make things like that now. I think we have become a little bit, you know, unimaginative. But you can't start a fire without a spark. Pick a guitar up, write a movie script, write a situational comedy. Obviously, you are going to be the voices of the future. There's a lot of people. I mean, look, to be honest, I don't know whether you saw this today, actually. So Sky Sports have been rumoured to be doing this for a while. They're going to do a new Friday night Premier League show. And the presenter is Roman Kemp, who basically, I think he's been a radio DJ, but he's got a famous dad. I like his dad. I don't know. I've never listened to Roman Kemp. I don't know what he's like. But I like Ross Kemp. I loved Phil and Grant, EastEnders. And so what if he's got a famous dad? But he's getting absolute pelters. What does he know about football? And look, maybe it is Sky being a little bit, you know, off the ball. But, you know, that's sort of my point. People moan about, you know, Soccer Saturday's shit now compared to what it used to be. It's rubbish. It may as well be put out of its bloody misery. But why is it shit? Why is it nowhere near as good? I firmly believe that things should get better. Like, football certainly has. People are, you know, players are much more fitter now. Why is it that in the early 90s, I used to watch Soccer Saturday with Jeff Stelling, George Best, Rodney Marsh, Frank McClintock, Charlie Nicholas, and it was bloody brilliant. And now you look at it and you go, what a load of shit. The reason for that is because the people in control have become lazy, out of touch, and they're still making the decisions. You're going to be the decision makers of the future. These people are going to lose their jobs or retire. You're going to be the voice. So whether these people have fell off or, you know, they're out of touch or they're too woke or whatever you want to call them, you're the future. You're the people who are going to take these people's jobs. And if you're inspired by something better, you've got that in you to make it better. And that's what I'm expecting in the next 10 years. I'm expecting a full circle of film, music, TV, production. I think it's going to be a big boom. I think it's going to all come back because I think there's a real thirst for it. And when you look at what we've built in 10 years, this didn't exist. Yeah, there's lots of people copying it. There's lots of people doing similar things, evolving it. It didn't even exist 10 years ago. So, look, nostalgia's great, but I will never believe that, you know, those times were better and we'll never get them back. And that fits full circle with where I was always going to circle back to, Manchester United. I firmly believe we can get back. It's not going to be easy, but I think we can. I really think we can. And we have to drive that. We have to set the standards. We have to set the standards in our own life. We've got, you know, you're the voice. Make it be heard. Because I think people are getting very tired of being told what to think and what to do, and you can't do that. We can. We can be. The United stand certainly was. I got so bored of watching mainstream TV football shows and, you know, tired ex-players with a bloody mic in their ear being told what to say. I was like, it's fucking boring. The conversation I'm having in the pub is 100 times better than this, and that sparked the Sunday night show. And then it's become this. So, you know, things can get better. It's not, and I wouldn't, you know what? I've got all that in my head. I've got all my memories in my head. I lived those moments and they live in here. I wouldn't want to go back. It would be nice. It would be great to see people I can't see anymore. And it would be great to live those moments that live in here. But it would be fake. It wouldn't be real because it's gone and I lived it. And I want to just keep living and creating those things in the now with the people I do have around me. And that's what we should be doing. Thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. When you build your Lego Old Trafford, took me ages. Oh, Christian, I need to find where it is. I need to find where it is. Xander, thank you very much for your super chat. Comedy died ever since wokeness became prevalent, says Bulkham. Do you plan on getting any Oasis tickets? I would go if I got offered some, but I've seen them so many times. I'm not desperate for them. Take care, everyone. What a show. We maintain 21,000 even with the after show. It's getting better and better. Make sure you subscribe. Take care. Speak to you all in a bit.